Elmwood Falls. A picturesque town nestled in the heart of the countryside, where the streets are lined with blooming flowers and the air is filled with the scent of freshly cut grass. It was a place that seemed to have been plucked straight out of a storybook, where every house had a white picket fence and every neighbor greeted you with a warm smile. It was the kind of place where children chased fireflies on warm summer evenings, their laughter echoing through the twilight as they ran barefoot across the dewy grass. Parents watched from porches, sipping lemonade and sharing stories of their own childhoods, while the fireflies danced in the air like tiny, glowing fairies. Neighbors gathered for barbecues, their laughter echoing through the manicured streets. The smell of grilled burgers and hot dogs wafted through the air, mingling with the sweet scent of blooming roses. It was a community where everyone knew each other, where doors were left unlocked and children played freely in the streets without a care in the world. It was a picture of suburban tranquility, a place where nothing bad ever seemed to happen, until it did. The peace and serenity that had defined Elmwood Falls for so long was shattered in an instant, leaving the residents reeling in shock and disbelief. The idyllic facade of Elmwood Falls was shattered on a crisp autumn morning. The sun had just begun to rise, casting a golden glow over the town, when the first sirens pierced the stillness. Neighbors emerged from their homes, drawn by the commotion, their faces etched with concern and confusion. The tranquility that once defined the community was replaced by the piercing wail of sirens. Police cars raced down the streets, their lights flashing urgently as officers rushed to the scene. The air was thick with tension, and a sense of unease settled over the town like a dark cloud. The air, usually alive with the sounds of children playing, grew thick with whispers and dread. The once vibrant playground stood empty, the swings swaying gently in the breeze as parents kept their children close, fearful of what might happen next. Conversations were hushed, and eyes darted nervously from house to house, searching for answers. The heart of the tragedy resided at 42 Willow Creek Lane. A house that had once been filled with laughter and love now stood as a grim reminder of the darkness that had descended upon Elmwood Falls. The front yard, once meticulously maintained, was now a flurry of activity as police and forensic teams worked tirelessly to uncover the truth. This charming two-story house, once a symbol of family and hope, became a crime scene. The yellow police tape fluttered in the breeze, a stark contrast to the cheerful flowers that lined the walkway. Inside, the forensic team meticulously combed through every inch, searching for clues that might explain the unthinkable events that had transpired. The life that unfolded within those walls, and the darkness it concealed, would forever stain the heart of Elmwood Falls. Family photographs, once proudly displayed, now seemed to mock the happy memories they represented. The windows, dark and foreboding, hid the secrets that had been kept for so long. The town would never be the same, and the shadow that had fallen upon Elmwood Falls would linger for years to come. As the investigation continued, the residents of Elmwood Falls found themselves grappling with a new reality. The sense of safety and security that had once defined their lives was gone, replaced by a pervasive fear that something like this could happen again. Parents held their children a little tighter, and neighbors who had once been close friends now eyed each other with suspicion. The media descended upon the town, their cameras and microphones capturing every moment of the unfolding drama. Reporters speculated endlessly about the events at 42 Willow Creek Lane, their sensational headlines only adding to the community's anxiety. The once quiet streets were now filled with the hum of news vans and the chatter of journalists, all eager to uncover the next big scoop. In the midst of the chaos, the residents of Elmwood Falls tried to find a way to move forward. They organized community meetings where they shared their fears and offered support to one another. They held candlelight vigils, hoping to bring some light to the darkness that had enveloped their town. And slowly, they began to rebuild, determined to reclaim the sense of peace and tranquility that had once defined their lives. But the shadow that had fallen upon Elmwood Falls was not easily dispelled. The events at 42 Willow Creek Lane had left a deep scar, one that would take time to heal. The town had been forever changed, and the residents knew that they would never be able to return to the way things were before. But they also knew that they had each other, and that together they could find a way to move forward. As the seasons changed and the leaves turned from green to gold, Elmwood Falls began to find its footing once again. The children returned to the playgrounds, their laughter slowly returning to the air. Neighbors began to gather for barbecues once more, their conversations filled with hope and determination. And while the memory of the tragedy at 42 Willow Creek Lane would never be forgotten, the town of Elmwood Falls proved that even in the face of darkness, there is always a glimmer of light. In the end, Elmwood Falls was more than just a town. It was a community, bound together by the shared experience of both joy and sorrow. And as they looked to the future, the residents of Elmwood Falls knew that they would face whatever came their way with strength, resilience, and an unbreakable spirit. For even in the darkest of times, the light of hope can always be found. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting long shadows across the neatly mowed lawns of Willow Creek Lane. The early morning light painted the street in hues of gold and amber, creating a serene and picturesque scene. Birds chirped softly, welcoming the new day, and the air was crisp with the promise of a fresh start. The neighborhood was still and quiet, with only the occasional rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. Margaret Anderson, a woman known for her morning walks and friendly greetings, was the first to notice something amiss. She had lived on Willow Creek Lane for over a decade and knew every nook and cranny of the neighborhood. Her morning walks were a ritual, a time for her to clear her mind and enjoy the tranquility before the hustle and bustle of the day began. She greeted her neighbors with a warm smile and a cheerful wave, always taking the time to chat and catch up on the latest news. The front door of 42 Willow Creek Lane was ajar. It was a small detail, but one that immediately caught Margaret's attention. She knew the Millers were meticulous about their home, always ensuring everything was in its place and secure. The sight of the open door sent a shiver down her spine, a sense of foreboding settling in her chest. Margaret hesitated for a moment. She stood there, her mind racing with possibilities. Had they forgotten to close the door in a rush? Was there an emergency? Her instincts told her something was wrong, but she didn't want to jump to conclusions. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. She knew the routine of her neighbors, the Millers. They were a young couple, new to Elmwood Falls, with a baby girl. Every morning, she would see them through their kitchen window, preparing breakfast and getting ready for the day. They were friendly and polite, always waving to her as she passed by. They were a young couple, new to Elmwood Falls, with a baby girl. The Millers had moved in just a few months ago, and Margaret had quickly taken a liking to them. They were kind and considerate, always willing to lend a hand or share a cup of coffee. Their baby girl was the apple of their eye, and they doted on her with all the love and care in the world. It wasn't like them to leave the door open like that. Margaret knew they were cautious and responsible, always making sure their home was secure. The open door was a stark contrast to their usual behavior, and it only heightened her sense of unease. A sense of unease settled over Margaret. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Her heart pounded in her chest and her palms grew sweaty. She glanced around, hoping to see someone who could offer reassurance, but the street was empty. She approached cautiously, her hand trembling as she reached for the doorbell. The small button felt cold and unyielding under her fingertip. She pressed it, the sound of the chime echoing through the house, unanswered. The silence that followed was deafening, amplifying her growing anxiety. The chime echoed through the house, unanswered. Margaret waited, her breath held, hoping to hear footsteps or a voice, but there was nothing. The stillness of the house was unsettling, and she felt a chill run down her spine. With growing concern, Margaret peered inside. The hallway was dimly lit, shadows dancing on the walls. She could see the faint outline of furniture and the soft glow of a nightlight in the distance. Everything seemed in order, but the silence was unnerving. What she saw in the hallway beyond made her gasp, her hand flying to her mouth to stifle a scream. There, lying on the floor, was a figure. It was Mr. Miller, motionless and pale. Margaret's mind raced, trying to process what she was seeing. She felt a wave of panic wash over her, and her legs threatened to give way. The phone slipped from her grasp as she fumbled to dial 911. Her fingers trembled, making it difficult to press the buttons. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. The operator's voice on the other end was calm and reassuring, but Margaret could barely hear it over the pounding of her heart. She managed to explain the situation, her voice shaking with fear and urgency. The operator assured her that help was on the way, and Margaret clung to that hope, praying that everything would be all right.